All right, so the time period of the Gaonim, and we're going to, there's the Gaonim who answered questions on the Gemara. Those are called Sheiltos Uchuvos, different examples of Sheiltos Uchuvos, and they lived in a pretty good time period. Today we're going to focus on some examples of questions and answers, Sheiltos Uchuvot, Responsa. Okay, I want you to know all those terminology, so write them down if you need to. Sheiltos Uchuvot, Shaila means a question, Teshuva means an answer, and they're called in English Responsa. This style of work was developed in order to assist the various Jewish communities as the Jews were spreading out globally, and this was to assist them in understanding the Gemara. So let's have a look at what Sheiltos Uchuvos are, and in class we will have an opportunity to explore a few of these responsa in greater depth. Many questions were addressed by people from every town to the Gaon who lived in their time, requesting him to explain for them difficult matters in the Gemara. So they needed to understand a topic or apply a scenario to a specific situation, and the Gaonim would reply in accordance to their wisdom. The questioners would then collate the responses and often make books of them for which to understand. Sometimes the responses were long enough to be a book in itself, but most often they were shorter responses. Remember, they were very familiar with the Gemara, as easy as it is for us to say Shema. Why were these explanations needed anyways? If something was explained in the Gemara and explained orally, why do they need to write these answers at all? The Gaonim realized the necessity of producing written works to strengthen the past of those who couldn't sit and study at the central yeshivas in Babel. So that's already for one type of person. There's someone who just wasn't able, didn't have the time, or didn't have the ability to sit and learn. And if that was such a person, they still needed answers to their halachat shalot, so they would write a question and get an answer, even though the answers could easily be accessible within the yeshiva system itself. Secondly, this was the first impetus to realize the necessity of such work. This need hadn't been felt in the days of Babylonia itself, since those who lived there regularly met at yeshivas, remember Yarchikala, where all the questions and difficulties were presented and dealt with. If you lived in the Torah Center, you had easy access to the information. Either you went to the review yourself, or you had opportunity to go and speak to a Rav when you had a question. But if you lived far away, you needed to write a question and get an answer. You might not be at the main Torah Center. So part of the reason we needed the Gaonim to write Responsa was because the Jews had spread out geographically. Because of this change in history, this change in Jewish geography that's happening right now, Responsa was very necessary. It was impossible to continue otherwise. Now we're going to have the opportunity to learn about the first Amira's Responsa. Yay! This is Rav Amram. He's part of our song. Rav Amram wrote a Seder to clarify the Seder. So he obviously received a question asking, what do I daven? Because there was no authoritative text, as some of you have read in your articles in class. So Rav Amram wrote a response, and he didn't just write a one-word answer, he actually wrote out a Seder. Let's have a look. Here is a title page of Rav Amram's Seder. You can see here that it says the Seder, the order of Rav Amram, that's his name, Gaon, Zechreina Levracha means a blessed memory. And this is only part 1 of his book. And let's just translate the introduction of the text together from right over here. Kolel, this includes Seder Nusach Hatzvila, the order of how we should daven for the entire year, L'Kol Hashana. That means that it also had a machzor, not just every regular day davening. How did he decide? Where did he come with the ideas from? Kafi Asher Tzikan, as it was established by the Gaon Rav Amram, the Shmasai Edin. Okay, this is the person who put together the book. Now, not only is it a list of what to daven, so the actual text of a siddur, but it also included with it dinim, laws, uminhagim, and customs, v'kol davar be'itai, everything at its time. That means that the laws for Rosh Hashanah would have been with the Rosh Hashanah machzor. Achai Yesadim HaGaon, that the Gaon established, set up, a Gaon Rav Amram, Hanizkar El, the person we spoke about earlier, right there. The Gaon Rav Amram. V'shagayim hadavarim b'fi hakadzmainim. And now this is explained according to the people who come later. Rashi, Balei Taisvais, the Rash, the Torah, the Archas Chaim, Beis Yosef, Ramehem, and all of them went according to the order of Rav Amram Gaon, Zechrona Levracha. So this is our first authoritative text of the Seder. What an incredible accomplishment. So let's have a look at this text. Let's look a little bit at some of what he wrote. And you'll recognize this because you said it this morning. Yehi Ratzain, may it be Hashem's will, Melafana Hashem Elekai, Sound familiar? Where's that from? It's morning brachas. That's right. And then he's going to give an instruction. We have to make sure not to say that bracha unless we're actually in that state. So there's an instruction of what to do. And then he continues on with another Yehi Ratzain. That Hashem should save us. Hashem should save us from all these negative influences, from the evil, from an evil yetzer, an evil neighbor, and an evil friend, and from a bad sickness, din kasha, and from a hard judgment, bal din kasha, and from someone else who makes a din harshment, ben bris, whether he's Jewish, ben sha'ena ben bris, or if he's not Jewish. Okay, all part of morning tefillah. Look at that continue. Exactly the same way as we say, it hasn't changed. Rav Amram Gaon wrote it in his Seder, and we're still doing the same exact tefillah, and so on and so forth. You're familiar with that. And we continue, Baruch Hashem, Asher Bachar Banu, that Hashem chose us, Mikol Ha'am v'nasan lanu as Tairasai. Again, part of davening we say every day. Baruch Hashem, Naisein HaTaira. Part of davening. Yivarechecha, Hashem v'yishmerecha. Part of davening, exactly the same as we say now. How amazing is that? Now I want you to realize that once the Responsa, the Sheiltos Tshuva, was sent to a community, that was binding. The community asked the question of Rav Amram, what should we daven? That community had to follow it. It wasn't necessarily binding at that point to everyone across the Jewish world, but that community asked the question, now that community's got to follow it. So that was the end of Responsa 1. Now let's have a look at Responsa number 2. Rav Achai wrote something special. Rav Achai wrote Sheiltos for his son, and now it's for us. Again, that's part of a song. So what is Sheiltos, and why did he write it for his son? Now, before we look into the actual Responsa, who was Rav Achai Gaon who wrote this? So actually, Rav Achai Gaon was never technically a Gaon. He was a Gaon because he deserved the title. He had the genius. But he never served as head of a yeshiva in Baba, which is what all Gaonim did. They were the head of a yeshiva. What happened was that after the person before him, the guy before him, his name was Shmuel, passed away, Rav Achai was the most likely successor, but there was some sort of enmity. Something had gone wrong. The Reish Galusa and him were not on the best terms. At that point in time, the Reish Galusa, the political leader of the Jews, had a lot of power. So he chose someone else. He chose one of Rav Achai's disciples, Rav Natrunya Kahana, to be the next guy. Rav Achai wasn't too happy, and he actually went to Eretz Yisrael instead. But it was clear that this was actually something good that happened because Rav Achai was able to kind of fix things up in Eretz Yisrael. There were some problems there, and he was able to really help out Jews there. So that's something we'll look at a little bit later. Now, his is kind of like this Eretz Yisrael bit was kind of like a Maksim Refuah Lefnei Hamaka thing. Rav Achai's Sefer was called Sheiltos, and he did not actually write it in response to a particular question, like most Responsa are. Rav Achai wrote this work likely for his son. And what it was his son was wasn't the classic academic scholar, so he needed to make him something a little bit easier. So what he did was he went according to the parsha of the week and wrote a she'ilta, a question, on each parsha, so that he can learn something in time with the parsha of the week. And we'll go through the exact breakdown of that, the exact sections of what that was. and his goal was obviously to promote the learning of Parsha and the learning of Halacha as well. Something amazing about this was that later a Jewish historian said about him that they've heard about this, that there was not a single mistake found in this work. That's a pretty impressive feat. All right, so what was this work? The Sheiltos was composed of 4 different sections. It had a subject in the Parsha that it was talking about, a halachic question based on that subject in the Parsha. Then it explained it a little bit like with an Agadata-like sermon, and then answer the question. Now, not every section follows this neat 4-part scheme. We're going to actually learn a piece in class that doesn't follow that 4-part scheme, but in general, that was the basic structure and idea of the Sefer. Here's a look at a Sheiltos of Achai. Let's have a look at it over here. You can see where that arrow is. You can see that it's talking about Tefillas Avais Tiknum. How was Tefillah set up? Amram set up the Tefillah of Shacharis. And the proof for that is that it says, V'yashkim Amram b'Baiker, Makam Asher Avad Shem Espnei Hashem. Yitzchak set up the Tefillah of Mincha. As it says, Vayetz Yitzchak l'suach basada. And finally, we know that Yaakov set up the Tefillah of Ma'ariv, as it says about him, Vayifna b'Makan Vayilan Shem. So this is one of the things he would talk about, the halachic application of Tefillah as it linked to the Parsha of the week, the Parsha talking about the Avos. Then in class, what we'll be doing is we'll be looking at the content, importance and purpose of Rav Achai Sheiltos. So you can use the box on page 9 to jot some notes for yourself, so that you make sure that you're familiar and prepared to talk about what the content, import, and purpose of Rav Achai Sheiltos was. Be'ezras Hashem, we're going to look at 2 more famous responsa in the upcoming lessons. For now, though, I would like you to continue thinking about your research question. What sort of inquiry would you like to do? Perhaps today's session has given you some ideas. This is just one idea, an idea for your inquiry question. You might want to look into one of these ideas to look at some of the a particular Gaon style, or perhaps a particular question, and how the Gaonim research that question. If you're stuck for an idea for your inquiry question, well then here's something you can have a look at. And just to give you an example, here is one change that happened in halacha. It used to be that if a woman had a kasuba and needed to collect it, she can only collect it from stationary objects like a home or something that didn't move. And now, because Jewish life was shifting to more agriculture, from an agricultural based lifestyle where everyone had property and had that sort of thing to give to pay off a kasuba, now it shifted and they created an allowance to be able to use mitzaltalin, movable objects, to pay a woman her kasuba. That reflected the change in Jewish lifestyle, that now people were moving from an agro-based society to more commerce-based merchant society. So think for yourself, how does this halachic decision highlight a change in society across the globe? You can answer that in a minute. Thanks so much for watching. All right, that is the end of this session on Responsa, Sheiltos Utshuvos, where we covered the tshuva of Rav Amram, who wrote a Seder to explain what to daven, and Rav Achai, who wrote a Sefer to give halacha connected to each parsha. Remember to be prepared to explain the content, purpose, and importance of each of these works. See you in class.